right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Actionable Case Study, LinkedIn Live or podcast. First, I'd like to check in. Chuck, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. Glad to hear. You know, it's amazing. I've been in technology my whole life, and yet technology always seems to present some
Yeah,
problems.
technology is great until it doesn't work, right? I mean, that's kind of the
That's
bottom
right.
line.
And
Yeah.
in all the years I've done it, it never ever works exactly the way it's supposed to, right? Well, Chuck, how you doing today? How's life in the fast lane?
Yeah, no, it's good. Looking forward to getting to the weekend, but and not overwhelmed with the North Carolina weather being like 35 degrees overnight. But other than that, doing well.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone earlier today. They're up in Michigan and they're getting a blizzard, and like, thank goodness
Yeah,
I'm in North Carolina. But
my partner Adam Sinkus, who you know, is over the moon excited because he's back up in Detroit and it snowed today. So as a skier, he's like, okay, bring it on. I'm ready.
yeah, that's a good thing for a skier. Well, let's get started. Let's get started with this episode. I'm really excited. There's a lot to cover here. I think there's going to be really actionable insights for everyone. I mean, that's the whole point of this. My name is Vinay Raman. I'm the CEO of a company named Carmo. And let me tell you real quick what we do, just kind of why we led into this podcast, why we've set up the podcast, and tell you what the podcast is all about. So Carmo is all about this idea of I've spent so much of my life doing business intelligence, looking at data and facts and metrics, KPIs, key performance indicators. But it doesn't matter. I think it was Maya Angelou who said it doesn't matter what you say to them, it's how you make them feel.
Mm.
Emotions matter. So we started to delve into this world of emotions, understanding people's emotions, specifically around organizations and culture. As we started to realize more and more about it, people have different perspectives of what's going on in their company at any point in time. And it has ripple effects in so many different ways. We've got people who are listening in from lots of different places. So, as I'm going through this, I'd love to hear your comments on that. Have you ever been in an environment where you thought the culture and what someone else thought the culture was, what was supposed to get done, what was the vision, the alignment with the vision? You ever felt like it's a little different than what everyone else thought? Have you ever
Yeah,
been in an organization where it was all aligned?
yeah, totally agree with that. I've had it happen multiple times in my 40 plus years career. A young startup called Eye Contact. We were actively involved with that and started with, I believe it was 13 people, and ballooned to 50 to 60 to 70. And what a lot of folks believed was, an issue that we ran into was silos of, the devs were doing one thing and they were pretty much siloed: sales, marketing, customer service. In our case, because we're an email marketing company, deliverability. And one of the things that I'll mention here at the top of the hour is marketing is one thing, but marketing communications is another thing, and that's what I have primarily worked in my early part of my career, is communicating across and breaking down silos. I mean, that was kind of the biggest issue that we ran into. I've worked with multiple marketing and PR agencies, same situation that you run into. The quote unquote executive team may have one vision, and the folks that are doing the work on a day-to-day basis may not either subscribe to that vision or understand what that vision is, and no pun intended here, but there was no clear path to communications.
So I'd like to ask, appreciate that story and kind of that share. I'd love to ask anybody who's in the audience. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a culture before where you felt like everybody wasn't misaligned? I mean, where everyone wasn't aligned. There was lots of misalignment. The way this podcast, the way I'd like it to work is if you've got questions, you've got comments, go to that comment box. I think it should be on the right-hand side of your screen. Share. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down saying, I agree. Vinay, what you're saying is crazy. That's perfectly okay. First question I'd like you to answer for me, though, is have you ever worked as part of a culture where you didn't feel like everybody was aligned? Because today on our podcast, that's something we're going to talk about, especially around marketing, communications, Marcom. I want to frame this up a little bit as to how we're going to do this podcast today, because this is where you're going to get to hear a little bit of Chuck and his expertise and the wealth of knowledge that he brings to the table. Um, we're going to start first. There's a diagnostic tool called the culture and role alignment. It's basically a visual, and we're going to show some of these pictures, so these visuals on screen real quick. We'll show them for you. So you can see visually how different people in the organization show up and how they see things. And when you see them visually, you've heard pictures worth 1,000 words. As you see them, you can start to see how things are different. And that's where we're going to start to layer in a little bit of what Chuck does, right? This Marcom stuff, the marketing communications, and how you can see those misalignments lead to just lots of friction. The analogy I like to make is if your left wheel is going right, left, and your right wheel is going right, it doesn't matter how much power you have in that car, you're not going fast very quickly. So please go to the comments, type in if you've ever worked in an organization where you haven't felt full alignment of the team. Chuck, I want to give a little bit of an introduction to who you are so everyone knows what you are, what you've done. My background is in artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics, and the emotions of humans. I want to tell people what you bring to the table. I'm going to give a little bit of summary points of who you are. The way I like to think of you is a visionary strategist, and your expertise is around strategic marketing, planning, and execution for startups and small businesses. The attributes of companies that you really like to lean into, it extends beyond this, but this is sort of the sweet spot for you, is usually organizations that have got 1 to 5 million in sales. They've got junior marketing staff or self-managed marketing. They're trying to figure it out by themselves. They're based in the United States, particularly the Raleigh-Durham area, Detroit, Florida, San Diego. Here's the pieces that I want to bring out and see if this resonates with you if you're listening in here. The emotions that might be at play for you. You're feeling overwhelmed, right? You're managing so many aspects of your business. There's lots of moving parts. So there's overwhelm there. There's some uncertainty because of so many different things. What do we need to focus on next to get the ball moving forward? There's a level of frustration. Having started this being on my 6th company, I can identify with that frustration level. Sometimes you don't know where to focus your time and effort. Chuck, any thoughts, comments about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really you've hit on our sweet spot. It's technology services organization. As I mentioned, my partner, Adam Sinkus, is based in the Detroit area. We have folks in San Diego, 3 managing partners and 8 subject matter experts on demand. We work with folks who say, yeah, I really love the widget, the service, the software, whatever that I've developed. I really want to concentrate on that. My favorite phrase, and I've had it happen several times with prospects, is I hate marketing. Well, that's great because we love marketing. I mean, that's who we should be, and we're coming alongside. That's why a purpose partnership is a partnership and not a vendor, because we get involved with that. And then you mentioned, I like to say young professionals as opposed to juniors, but young professionals who are coming in, maybe great in social media, or just graduated or a couple years in. They're brought in to help and do the marketing. And frankly, they don't have the business experience that's needed to execute on strategic plans and tactical plans as well. So we come in alongside and work with them, and and empower them to do the job they've been asked to do, and train them up at the same time. So our slogan is you do you, we do marketing. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line on that. Adam and I and our SMEs that we have working with us love what they do. We've got one person in particular who only wants to blog and wants to develop blogs with SEO capabilities. So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
So I'd love to ask the audience, if you're listening in, I would love to ask you a question. Have you ever felt a little frustrated maybe with sort of the way marketing is going for your organization? Maybe even a finer point on that is, do you feel like the rest of the organization is aligned with marketing, or marketing and the rest of the organization just kind of see a different picture on the front of that jigsaw puzzle box? They see just a completely different picture, so they're headed in different directions. I'd love to hear, because this is what I'd like to do is I'd like to transition and to show you an organization. This is a typical organization that's out there. We've actually changed the names of the people and the organization itself. I want to show you a visual just so you can start to see what is possible when you take this culture and role alignment diagnostic, and you can start to see how this truly affects the outcome of that organization, and ultimately the marketing as well. Give me a moment here. I'm going to share my screen, and let me get to the right page here. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to show you here is what we call that culture and role alignment diagnostic. If I can get my screen set up here. So we call this the cultural and role alignment index. So the diagnostic is the tool. The output is this report here. It's about a 50-page report for a company. I'm going to scroll forward a little bit here. And basically what this report does is it talks to you about a company and starts to show here are the key insights for that organization, the opportunities, the risks, and the potential for impact on this organization. I want to start to show you a little bit more here about the organization and kind of I want to start to help you understand a little more of the what's happening in the organization. So here's the CEO of this company, Elias Jaden. Their strengths. So there's a series of questions that we ask them, and we ask them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means they're really strong and that they feel a lot of confidence there. A 1 means less confidence, and you're going to see that in a second here. Here's some of the strengths that their CEO feels: customer retention, market position, strategic goal alignment. But some of the frictions that they feel within the organization, this is their perception: innovation, technology, communication gaps. Here's some of the places where they're misaligned with the rest of the team. Let me show you what that looks like visually. There you go. Blue is Elias Jaden, the CEO of the company, and this gray is the average of the whole leadership team in this case. Outside edges strongly agree. They feel very confident, very strong about that. Inside into the center is where they feel less confidence, feel lots of friction there. So you can see things such as brand reputation, communication, innovation, employee satisfaction, areas where they feel a lot more friction. The team, on the average of the team, feels a little differently. I'd love to hear, take a moment here. If you're listening in from the audience or if you're joining us after the live event, just type in pound replay for me. I'd love to hear what sort of story emerges for you as you look at this. You can see kind of how the CEO looks at the company and their performance, and how the average for the whole team looks here at how the company is doing. Please type that into the comments and tell me, what do you see here? What sort of feel do you get? Chuck, what about you? You see this, what comes to mind when you see this leader here compared to their team? Chuck, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Were you able to see that image?
Yes.
Anything that came out to you? I mean, market position is strong, operational efficiency is strong, customer retention, revenue growth, strategic goal alignment, agility are all things that the CEO believes is very strong. The rest of the team doesn't see that way. What does that mean to you from the marketing angle Marcom angle that you take a look at the world? What does that say to you about the CEO?
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about silos. One of the silos that organizations often run into is in between the different departments at the C level. So, for instance, the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the Chief Marketing Officer. CEO may have a vision that he has not communicated well to his team, and so there's a lack of alignment in that regard to be able to take a look at that. The other thing that came out of this, and it was in a previous slide here, is basically, we talked about this a little bit when we first were getting on, kind of a misgiving towards technology and innovation and where he wants to go. If I'm the CTO, or for that matter, if I'm the CMO, those are issues. I mean, those are things that really can be a concern. His level of customer satisfaction and customer retention, those type of things can also be a concern as well if it's not aligned.
So, question I want to ask the audience. I'm going to stop sharing here just because I'd love to see if there's comments or check in with people. Have you ever worked for an organization where you felt that the vision that was held in the CEO's head and what everybody else had was different? Again, the analogy I've used in the past is a jigsaw puzzle. It is really difficult to put together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle if you can't see the front of the box. it's very complicated then, because you're trying to figure out what your piece is and how it fits and who it doesn't fit with. But if you can look at the front of that box, all of a sudden, I'm not saying that the jigsaw puzzle is easy, but it becomes a lot easier because you have a common vision. Chuck, I'd love to hear your comments on that, because you were just talking about how there might be an unrealized vision here for this organization.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. Coincidentally, I am a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzler. So, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at one right now on one of my tables over here. And the harder ones are the ones that don't have a really good picture. You can't see the whole picture. So you're trying to put pieces together based on that. The other part of that is if you have a framework, and that's the other aspect of a jigsaw puzzle, good analogy. If you have a framework, that then you start getting pieces that you think should fit into that framework. So you're making assumptions. And that's the other part of that aspect of it as well. But yeah, and we talk about this when we're working with our clients internally as well. The phrase we use is getting your knowledge out of your head and into policies and procedures, and strategy and vision. And if you don't have that, and folks aren't mind readers, they can't figure that out. Or what they do is they see certain actions that occur at the C level, and they make an assumption that that's the vision that they're supposed to be following when it's not clearly articulated. So that would be the bottom line on that. A good example too, when I was working with Eye Contact, on a monthly basis, the CEO and the co-founder would have all hands on deck meetings, talk about vision, talk about where they're going, how growth is going on for employees, but also for customers, and revenue and fundraising. Everybody knew what was going on by the time we put all of that together. But there are companies out there where there may be 80 employees in an organization, and you see the CEO 3 times a year, or you hear from them, or whatever it may be. So communication is key, and that's a big aspect of it.
So I'd love to hear from anybody who's listening in here. Again, if you're joining after the live event, just type in #replay. I'd love to have your comments as well. Have you ever worked in an organization where you weren't very clear, sort of your you as a puzzle piece, as the organization, you didn't know you fit in or how you fit into the bigger picture? I'd love to hear your comments. Leave that off to the right-hand side there, if that's where the comment box is. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Because one of the things that I think I realized as we were talking about this, Chuck, and this kind of leads to a little bit of what you do here, right? Personal branding, sort of this leadership development and development of that vision, right? Building that stronger leadership presence and aligning that executive influence with the organizational goals. Forbes said strong personal branding increases leadership effectiveness by 27%. Mm-hmm. Being able to sit down with Elias in this case and helping them articulate what their vision is in a way that everybody can kind of opt into it and be part of it. Even Forbes says that increases that effectiveness of that leader by 27%. And that's kind of what you do. Give me an example of kind of where you've done something like that before, or what that kind of looked like.
It really is alignment of, and it's mentioned in the report that we put together, but it's alignment of the company mission with the personal branding as well. There's a phrase called halo branding, where you may have Chuck Hester of a Purpose Partnership as opposed to Purpose Partnership's Chuck Hester. You're looking at, for employees, say that the 80-person organization may have a idea of who Chuck Hester is, but unless you articulate that information and you work on your personal brand, and personal brand has a lot to do with when I'm out, and mostly it's social media, it could be events, it could be emails, whatever it may be, there is always a consistency, so you know who that person is and what they do with the company, and therefore you understand the company. And that's kind of the bottom line on that. So we work with CEOs, C-levels, VPs in regards to what's your personal brand, what does it look like? Best example I could give you is somebody out there on LinkedIn, and they're talking about whatever their passion might be, and has nothing to do with the mission statement for the company they own, they work for, or they're partners with. So there has to be a certain amount Yes, you can have your passions and you can talk about that online and in your social media. The best example I can give you there is I have a tendency to counsel that LinkedIn is the place where you talk about company, culture, industry. Go to Facebook if you want to, and I'm a good example. Go to Facebook if you want to talk about dad jokes and applesauce. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line on that, right? So there are, and folks are really, we have run into this on a regular basis where people are like, oh, okay, I will post this on LinkedIn and it can go on Facebook and Instagram and it'd be fine. Well, there's different branding aspects of all three of those particular social media outlets that you need to pay attention to. But more importantly, and if the other part of that is, if you're a C-level and you're not talking about your company and your culture and your people, then you're misaligned.
I want to reach out to everyone sort of in the audience here and bring this back a little bit to the title of this episode: How to Solve Marketing and Misalignment Challenges in Minutes. We spent a couple of seconds showing you some visualizations. We spent a couple of minutes looking at that, and you could start to see already CEO Elias Jaden in this case, and sort of how they saw things compared to their team. I suspect that probably took you a couple of seconds in looking at that visual to see what's possible and sort of what that level of misalignment is. And then we went on to talk about what Chuck does to help build that alignment for a team. Mm-hmm. Two options here. If you'd like to be able to generate a visual like that for yourself or your whole team, there's a free diagnostic. Type in CRA, culture and role alignments. Type in CRA into the comments and I will send you a link to that, or I can even send you the case study if you type in case study. So CRA to get the alignment diagnostic yourself, or the case study, which we'll share the case study that we built here, because I want to move into another visual here, because I want to show what else Chuck can do when he sees this level of misalignment in an organization, and how it can move beyond just the CEO to maybe even a different member of the team. Chuck, give me a moment here as I get myself screen shared. All right, we were looking at Elias Jaden, the CEO of this company. Let's move forward. We're going to look at, in this case, Olivia Chen. She's the Chief Operating Officer. Based on her visual, which you'll see in just a moment, just a couple moments here, her strengths: employee satisfaction, quality control, financial stability. So her perception is that these are areas of strength for the organization. Frictions, process efficiency, market position, internal communications. And where she's significantly misaligned with the rest of the team is their market position. She sees it differently. Innovation, she sees it differently in communication. Now, these aren't about right or wrong. These are perceptions. So let's go take a look at her visual. And if you remember what Elias looked like, this is a different picture. Gray, again, is the average of the team. Green is the Chief Operating Officer in this case. Outside edges strongly agree. So employee satisfaction, innovation, financial strength, quality control, global presence are things that she believes are quite strong for the organization. These are the areas that not so much. I'd love to ask the audience, when you see this, you see Olivia related to the rest of the leadership team, she sees things a little differently. She's a little aligned and misaligned. Not a matter of right or wrong. It's just the perception. What story comes forward for you? I'd love for you to take a couple of moments here and take a look at that, because if you can see what that story is, it changes how you can start to lead as an organization, or what the influence is. Chuck, how about you? You're in Marcom. She's a Chief Operating Officer. What does this tell you about what's going on in the organization?
Well, her emphasis, and it's very similar with my partner, left brain, right brain. Financial strength is important to her. Interestingly enough, employee satisfaction is as well. But when it comes to communication and customer retention and satisfaction, she doesn't align with the rest of the team in that regard. And honestly, that's a C-level situation where, here's my area of expertise. Here's why you hired me to do operations and to be able to work that through, to be able to get on, to a certain extent. And trust me, as a right brain, when I have to wander over to the left brain side of the house, a little bit uncomfortable, something that I don't default to and don't want to do as often. But for a strategic alignment of vision and where folks are going to go, you really need to be able to have team members who are going to kind of stretch themselves to a certain extent. I mean, over the last 3 years, I've done that with our organization and with other people in the organization. It's really simple to say, well, I'm really good at this, but no, I can't do that. Those type of things that you're running into. And again, if anything, if I look at this is a person who sits in her office, probably doesn't spend a lot of time on the floor, so to speak. Really doesn't understand necessarily the customers and who's out there and what they're looking at. They're more interested in policies and procedures. That's kind of the bottom line.
So the question I'd like to ask everyone, and I was referencing some of my notes over here, is this idea that if you look at Olivia Chen as the chief operating officer, clearly different perspective in the organization than the CEO. So the question I'd love to ask anybody listening in, do you see that difference in perspective? And the next question for you to follow on to that is, if you see a difference in perspective, can you see how that might influence the effectiveness of this organization's ability to share their message with the world? Here's what we do. Because Chuck, that's a question I want to ask you, right? I mean, we I'm just going to skip back here just so we can refresh everyone's memory here. Look, this is the CEO, market position, operational efficiency, customer retention, agility, very, very high, right? But when we look at the COO, we don't see market position, operational efficiency, customer satisfaction as being very high. We see different things. So they are seeing a different, going back to that jigsaw puzzle, the picture they see on the front of the box is different. Now, do they play a different role? Absolutely. But they're seeing a different vision. They're not aligned on what they're saying to the world or how they're affecting that change in the world or being able to deliver that to the world. Chuck, does that cause problems when an organization, when two people like this are not aligned in terms of their ability to communicate consistent message?
Yeah, it truly is. It's an internal situation where they may be working with managerial level folks or even line folks as far as how they're communicating. They could hear something from the CEO, which would be different from what they hear from the CFO or the COO in this case. But it's also, they're out at, NC Tech Awards or whatever it may be, or, networking and talking about company vision and what it looks like. And that message, if it's a mixed message, is going to be difficult and cause issues in regards to not only just retaining customers, but attracting customers as well, because they don't have they're just not on the same page is kind of the bottom line on that. And then one other note here, Vinay, as well is C-levels can have a tendency to be a little bit egocentric, and well, they should be, because they're high-level professionals and didn't get there just by happenstance. But when they have a project that they're definitely interested in, and the rest of the team at the C-level leadership level says, yeah, well, not so much. I mean, a good example would be your CEO that you're looking at here, and the CFO comes to them, or CTO comes to them and says, hey, this is a great new technology initiative. AI is important, and we need to really embrace it. And they go, that's not my thing. So believe me, I went kicking and screaming. But anyway, long story short, if the misalignment internally and externally on messaging and who you are is the bottom line on that.
So I want to bring up a point here that I came up with in my notes, right? It's around this idea of strategic communication frameworks, right?
Right.
You need to develop strategies to enhance internal communication, reduce inefficiencies across teams, because if they're speaking the same language, gosh, you get there much faster. Again, back to the analogy of the car, left wheel going left, right wheel going right. Doesn't matter how much power you have, you're not going forward very fast, right? And McKinsey said that streamlined communications reduces inefficiencies by 21%. So they're saying, look, if everybody's speaking the same language, talking to the same puzzle cover box image, right? They're all trying to build that same thing. Then they start to know what their role and create the completion of that puzzle forward faster. If they don't know what that picture is, one thinks it's a wagon, the other one thinks it's a sailboat. Well, they're looking at things completely differently. In this organization, we saw that enhanced communication could recover as much, based on the market stats, $500,000 a year annually, just by getting a consistent framework. Chuck, I'd love to hear from the audience. If you've got any thoughts about that, please share what you think about enhanced communication, strategic communication being aligned in the company and being able to reduce inefficiency. Chuck, your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, the alignment aspect of it, shared understanding of goals and processes across the team, that's huge. I mean, that really, really does make a big difference for it. I'm sure you're familiar, and my audience is familiar with the phrase, that meeting could have been an email. To have meetings that wander and it takes 45 minutes to get the point across, those type of things can cause issues, not only issues but resentment. And one thing that is kind of weaved in through all of this and the specific solutions that we look at is not just customer retention, but employee retention and attraction of new candidates as well. If they I work with executive level candidates for with LinkedIn training as well. And a lot of what I talk about is go find somebody who is working for that organization, ask them about the organization, the day-to-day work, and what they do. If they get 3 different answers on that, they're probably not going to be interested in continuing to talk about it. Or, and I've seen it in several agencies that I've worked with and companies that I've worked with. Your jigsaw puzzle analogy continues. If my section, lower left quadrant, I think I'm doing great, and this looks really great. And I look over to the lower right quadrant, and I realize, wait a minute, that doesn't align. I'm doing my job here at this point in time, and I'm thinking I'm doing great. And then there could be a company-wide meeting where say, yeah, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's totally opposite. So having those clear messages, and not only having the messages, but reiterating those messages on a regular basis. And honestly, we develop communications frameworks that are then accessible to the whole team and shared with the whole team, and sits in a place where if they have questions, they can go and look for it. Or a new employee comes in, they say, okay, look, here's our here's our framework of how we communicate. Here's how we talk to our clients, so that you're aware and you can be on the same page as well.
So I've got a comment here from Jonah Burlingame. I'm going to share this on screen. I think Jonah and I have been recently talking. Jonah, thanks for chiming in and sharing a comment. I think of Jonah as is kind of like a strategic vision translator. So I think I'd love to hear what your thoughts on. Read this comment for everybody. Jonah says many studies have been done on why business strategy execution has such a high rate of failure. I can see how this visualization tool would help with 2 of the key reasons: to identify where there's misalignment among the leaders and how communication needs to be improved. What I love about this point, Jonah, is oftentimes people, Simon Sinek talks about start with why. You go to YouTube, universities, you'll find out how, but there's this little word in the middle that no one talks about very often. And you've used the word where, but I think it's very similar to this word what. What is or where is the problem that we're actually trying to solve? And these visualizations say, hey, everyone's not aligned like this. They're kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes the opportunity to solve, and that's where all the friction in the world. I'll leave with this one last stat here because I'd love to hear your comments, Chuck, on this. But I think it was a Gallup poll that said 74% of people are disengaged in the workplace. Well, look, it's because they all have a different understanding of where they're going. Left wheel's going left, right wheel's going right. Well, they're fighting each other half the time. 74% of the time they're fighting each other as opposed to going forward in the same direction. That's got to be really frustrating. Chuck, I'd love your thoughts. Jonah, thank you for the share. I'd love any more thoughts you have as well.
Yeah, I think Jonah's dead on as far as that goes. Misalignment and how communication needs to be improved. Those are the 2 keys there. There are folks, and the phrase that I hear on a regular basis is, that's my day job. That's what I'm doing, 9 to 5, and I don't necessarily have a passion for this. The best startups that I've ever worked with, and the ones that are really killing it, are the ones where not only is there a mission and a passion for whatever they are delivering and whatever service or product they are providing, at the C level, that's great. But the ones that really, really do really well are the ones that all the way down to, the folks who are at entry level or managerial level have that same shared vision and passion. And that's kind of the bottom line. A good example I'll give you is there's an organization called Chroma Coatings, which is based here in Raleigh. And I went to an open house they had the other night, and every single person had the same vision for because they do three different things. They do painting, but they also do an application for painting your painters, and they have a 501c3 that goes into underprivileged countries to teach them how to do that. Every single one, it was just like, the energy in the room was amazing. But I could go from one person at the C level to another person who's a manager, and I'd hear the exact same thing. And that's kind of the bottom line on it.
Yeah, and gosh, I mean, I know there's organizations who spend the time to get people to rehearse that, and there is value in that, but for them to deeply understand it, because understanding that one line is useful. There's value there, right? But when somebody asks them the next question, if they don't kind of deeply, sort of like at a heart level, understand what is the vision behind the company, they can't clearly articulate to other people, here's why we do what we do, and how we help, and who we help, and what does that look like on the other side. So I think there's a lot of value in what you're saying there. Jonah goes on to say the real work begins after this diagnostic to understand why. That's where Chuck comes in. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That is what Chuck does. It dissects after we have this problem in an organization that misaligned. How do we put this all together? How do we integrate all these thoughts and sentiments together into a cohesive message that is. One of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein. Says, if you can't say it in one sentence, you don't truly understand it. If you can't say what you do as a company in one sentence, do you truly understand it yet? Is kind of the question. Chuck, your thoughts on that?
Well, and this is the bottom line on this. We, as an organization, when we are talking to potential clients and even clients that we have, we spend a lot of time on figuring out that misalignment. Having the CRA diagnostic tool in our pocket to be able to walk through and say, okay, yeah, that's great, Chloe. So, but look at how you are misaligned with your other team members and what that looks like, and to be able to understand. And honestly, there's another aspect of that is there may be organizations that are aligned in a fairly decent way, but they then go on steroids as far as communicating that all the way through. And I'll harken back to retention and recruiting. I mean, I want to work with a company that I hear has a really good culture. Yes, that's great, but also has a clear vision of how they're going to succeed. And a lot of folks don't get that when they're in there. They're checking boxes, they're sending in resumes, they're hoping for the best. But if they go out, they meet at somebody at like American Marketing Association networking event. Oh, so tell me more about, purpose partnership. Why is it great? And what makes a difference? And if they can't answer that question, then, it's questionable, I guess would be the best way to put that.
So I want to show one more visual, just kind of the break up a little bit of the monotony, because they're hearing me talk more than I should, because I want them talking about listening to what you do. I'm going to share a screenshot or a visual from this case study that now we've seen the CEO. I think we've seen the chief operations officer. I want to show you the whole leadership team here, right? Because if I had started with this, you'd look at this and this is almost like too much. But now you start to see this, and you kind of start to see the significance of the challenge here as an organization. All right, so we're coming back to, we've looked at the chief operating officer. I'm going to skip. Oops, I went the wrong way. We've looked at the chief operating officer. We saw the CEO. Let's go look at the whole team. So let me walk you through this real quick. This black area, and I know it might be a little confusing to look at. Could potentially even be a little overwhelming to look at. This black area is the average for the team, and you may have seen those in the other two graphs that we've shown you for the individuals. But look at all the different members of this senior leadership team. This person in the blue, strength over here. I think that was the chief operating officer, right? There's a person in the green over here. There's a person in the yellow who believes strength in these areas. If I go back to that car analogy again, left wheel is going forward, left, right wheel is going forward, right, left tire is going backwards into the right, and the right wheel is going sideways to the left, right? They're just going all kinds. You're using up tread, you're wearing out the suspension, the engine is kind of scratching your head, going, which way am I going? The occupants are turning the steering wheel, but nothing's happening. Frustration is probably what a lot of people are feeling. I want to give you a stat about this, right? employee advocacy and engagement initiatives is something that you spend some time around. Gallup said in 2023 that engaged employees drive 24% higher profitability. Cleaning this up, getting alignment between all these people right here is an easier 24% higher profitability for every dollar that you make. 24 more cents go into your pocket. How? By getting everybody to see the same thing. Chuck, what are your thoughts on that?
I could look at this without knowing the colors and what that aligns with is, for instance, there's a good chance that green is probably the chief marketing officer because they're concerned with marketing position and efficiency and brand as well, and to be able to do that. But yeah, this confusing. Yes. I mean, if I was a CEO and I was presented this, I'd go, uh-oh. Okay, we've got work to do. There's no doubt about it.
And imagine this is probably what everybody in the organization feels, right? They wouldn't be able to draw this, but this is probably what they feel when they go to, if this is sort of the culture that you walk into as a senior leadership team, I can imagine you go home every night and go, oh, how the heck we're going to get out of this thing? Because look, everyone is going in different directions. This is truth for an organization in the world right now. What if we can simplify that and make it more elegant? I'm going to stop sharing because I'd love to hear what you have to say about that, Chuck.
Yeah, that's kind of the bottom line. I mean, what this tool does is it puts into paper and data points feelings and emotions. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line on that. Yes, we have certain job descriptions and check boxes that we need to do, but at the end of the day, like you said, we want to go home and say, okay, I get this. This is moving forward. This is great. The other aspect of that is it's okay to be misaligned, but it's better to be misaligned and then acknowledge the fact that you are. If I'm a manager or VP and I hear from the C-suite that, hey, you know what, we've been doing some work here and we find out that we're misaligned on some vision, we're going to fix it and we're going to move forward with it. And you're a part of that aspect of it. That's the bigger importance for you there at a managerial level. If I'm hearing that I'm going to be part of the solution, not only that, but that you're acknowledging that what I'm feeling, that could be huge.
So I want to tease some key points out here, right? If you have had a chance to see any of these visuals that we've been showing on screen, especially this last one, which might have been pretty overwhelming if that's the first one you saw, if you could visualize that alignment, it can kind of it does visualize probably the frustration that you're feeling in trying to get leadership or your company to go in one direction, right? If that's interesting, type CRA into the comments and I'll send you the link. It's a free diagnostic. It'll take you 3 minutes. I think, Chuck, you've been through the process. I mean,
yes, our whole organization's been through the process.
Yeah, it's a super fast process. Imagine if you were able to see that what is causing the friction, because as a leader myself, I've got an initiative as to what I want to do, get my company to do, but everybody else on my team has got to be on the same page and buy into it and be able to row the boat in the same direction. If you type in CRA, I'll give you that link. It's a free diagnostic. It'll take you about 3 minutes, which is what I think is pretty amazing about this. It's so fast. And what happens is when you get that report back, that's an opportunity for Chuck to be able to come in from a marketing communications point of view, start to take a look at that and say, look, here's how we can actually build and create alignment, get people to coalesce around what the jigsaw puzzle box cover looks like, right? Chuck, is that the right way to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. Having this diagnostic tool and everybody understanding what that looks like I said earlier, we've run into this situation without this tool, and it's a longer process to get to the truth and to get to the bottom line on how, and more importantly, to get to the solutions to the problems. And all people know this, right? You can have a solution, that's great, but if you don't identify the problem and apply that solution, then you have a problem there.
I want to bring up one part of organizations. Operations is important, finance is important, marketing, sales are all important pieces. But I think the one that, especially in uncertain economic times, sales is something that every leader of a company is thinking about. If sales is not aligned with marketing, if sales is not aligned with finance, if sales is not aligned with customer service, so on and so forth, the company grows, stays healthy through sales, right? And all the other parts of the organization ultimately are empowering sales to do what it wants. I want to bring up this idea of relationship-centered sales coaching. Part of what you do as well, Chuck. If you can see that misalignment, you can help that sales team build that uh, build that sales coaching. So, and it's about developing these customer-focused sales strategies based on this authentic relationship-building techniques that you can put into place by helping them understand what are the problems, where they, from the operations team can give you some feedback in terms of what's happening in the onboarding process and the account management process, right? That customer experience. HubSpot said in 2021, relationship-driven sales improved conversion rates by 20%. So 1 out of 5 are you're leaving on the table that could actually occur if you were to use Chuck and being able to see your misalignment and working with Chuck. Talk to me about relationship centered sales coaching, kind of how you, with an organization like this, Chuck, how do you help? What do you start to think about when you see something like that?
And the key there is relationships. If you see your sales sheet as here's the 12 different prospects I need to talk to this next hour, hoping to convert 1 and 2, 3, whatever it may be, but you don't understand who that person is, and you come in selling, you've seen this, we've all seen this. You're on LinkedIn and you get a nice little invitation to I'd love to connect with you. This is what it looks like. And then the next message is, and here's the widget, the lead generator, whatever it may be that I sell. You're missing the point. It's not about you and it's not about sales. It's about the other person and hearing them. Hard for us guys sometimes, as far as listening and not solving, as far as what that goes. But here's the other aspect of that. You cannot solve a client's problem if, number one, you don't know what that problem is for sure and what's bugging them, and all you have is a list of 6 different things that you're supposed to sell that day, and if it doesn't fit, you're not listening. So that's the bottom line on that. So it's a lot about, it's not, in this case, it's the flip side, not telling your story, it's hearing the other person's story and then applying the solutions that you may have to talk about that. We talk about frustrations and aspects of it. Okay, so you're frustrated with this. What you really want to do is write software code all day long. You don't want to do marketing. What about marketing is a problem for you? Those type of things. I have clients that come in and say, I really like LinkedIn. I think it's great, but I can't write to save my soul. Adam and my favorite phrase is, we know a guy, we know people who can help out in that regard. And so it's really about building a relationship. And here's the other aspect of it as well. It's not just building a relationship to have customer retention. It is building a referral base of customers who are satisfied, who then will go out and say, hey, we're working with a purpose partnership. We think it's great. You should probably talk to them as well. That's the bottom line. Or they become part of your reference list, and you are very comfortable with having them on that list because you don't have any trouble with them having a call with somebody who might be interested in your services because they're going to say good things about you. That's kind of the bottom line.
I want to bring us back to the title of this episode to start to put a nice little bow on top of this. The episode was called How to Solve Marketing and Misalignment Challenges in Minutes. So here's what we did. We went and looked at this company. We looked at some of the visuals and we saw the CEO, COO, and then eventually went and looked at the whole team and saw how much, and I use this sort of visual all the time, everyone's supposed to be fully aligned, left hand, right hand here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're actually not all that aligned, right? They've got strengths and frictions in different areas. And that creates friction for the company when chief operating officer sees that there is friction on something, there's something that they have to work on, and they're not paying attention to other things because they need to work on that. Whereas the CEO thinks, hey, we're fine there. Why are you spending time working on that? When there's not internal alignment, the external alignment, they can't say the same message because they see different things, right? And we're able to see that literally in probably not even a minute. You can see the visual in just a moment. Once you see it, you can see that misalignment. And that's where you come in, Chuck, is to help them build that alignment around those pieces. Any final thoughts around this idea of marketing and seeing that misalignment challenges and doing it in a couple of minutes now?
Clearly articulate the mission, the goals, what you're trying to do. Don't leave that to the C level, the VPs. Make sure it's communicated all the way through to the company. I think we talked about this in a prior conversation. I call it the New York Times test when I was doing public relations for companies, making sure that if somebody calls into the organization and they start asking questions about how does this software work, what does this look like, everybody should have the same answer. And not only that, but believe the mission and the goals that they're trying to get across. Once that occurs, then it's not a problem whatsoever. And the reason I call it the New York Times test is because it could be a New York Times reporter just calling in randomly to try and find out more information.
Well, we've spent a fair bit of time talking about a number of things here. If you are a coach or consultant and you want to be able to understand your organizations that you work with, potential or existing clients, type in CRA and I'll show you. I'll walk you through the process of how, just like Chuck and I are partnering together, working together, how Chuck and I work together to help visualize these organizations, see where the misalignments are so that Chuck can come in and provide the services to help. If you're the leader of an organization and you want to find out what is the misalignment in my organization? What is it holding back? How is it holding me back? Type in CRA and I will into the comments and I'll get that to you. And if Chuck is the right solution for you, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with Chuck and get you connected to him so that he can help you with marketing. You'll be surprised how deep the misalignment goes and how significantly it affects marketing. So type in CRA into the comments if you'd like to do that. And I'll also be happy to send you a case study as well if you'd like to look at the case study that we did. Jonah, anybody else who types in comments over time, thank you for participating and giving us some of your time and your attention. Jonah, fantastic summary point that you made there. I appreciate the contribution. Finally, Chuck, I thank you and appreciate the time. You're a wizard at what you do. The MacGyver of Markham, I think, is what you call yourself, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love MacGyver. So anybody who says there's something MacGyver, I'm already in love with it.
There you go. Yeah, and if anybody wants to get in contact with me, feel free to send a LinkedIn invite. The only thing I ask is that in the invitation you say something like Chuck, you rocked when you were on the show, and I will answer right away. Not a problem.
Yes, and if you would like me to connect you to Chuck, you're more than welcome to direct message me. I'll make the connection for you as well.
There you go.
Chuck, thank you so much for your time. Audience, Jonah, thank you. Jonah actually just chimed in saying this was fantastic. Thanks, Jonah. I appreciate you and your time as well. Thank you for the contribution.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.